All right, welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today we have a fun video. We're going to talk about OGs versus reissues within the context of prestige. I also have a Blue Note example here that I do want to mention. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. Please drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this, what your experience is. I'm also going to drop a link to the Jazz Bums Discord, where you can come and chat with a bunch of people. That's a really great community that's growing. So please come and check us out there. And then also we have the Friday live stream. So we stream every Friday, so come and hang out with us there as well. All right, so with that, this is a topic that's pretty fun, and I know a lot of people are passionate on this on both sides. So please just take this as a data point. I am going to drop the listening information, so my hi-fi setup within the description. And again, this is just a data point in my own experience. So please let me know what you think, if it differs from my opinion. And yeah, let's just have some fun. So I was able to acquire 2 original pressings on the Prestige label that I also had the Analog Productions audiophile reissues of. So I thought this would be fun to have a shootout with. I was on a friend of the Jazz Bums, Rob, his live stream, and we did a poll, and the poll was, should I do this shootout, or are there too many shootouts already on YouTube? And the pro shootout side just edged out. So I'm obliged to adhere to the results of that poll. I'll also drop a link to Rob's channel, so make sure you sub up to him. He does a live stream every week, and for the most part, it's jazz focused. So if you like this content, you'll like that as well, I think. All right, so let me show you the 2 titles. I think we can kind of do this together because I do feel like my listening and my kind of opinions on this are shared across both of these prestige titles. The first one here is Bags Groove. So I went to New Jersey over this past weekend and went to the second Saturday record fair with my friend Kevin. And I found this copy. The cover's like VG, but the record itself is beautiful. I would call it VG plus. It plays really nice. And I got it for a great deal. So I was really happy to get this in the collection. And I do just want to discuss how I know this is a first pressing, because I do want to just kind of indicate that we're comparing a first pressing against the reissue. So first of all, in the dead wax, so in the runout groove area, we have an AB, and that indicates the pressing plant. That's Abbey Manufacturing. And we also have RVG that's stamped. So that indicates the mastering engineer, who is Rudy Van Gelder. The thing to note for an original pressing is the address on the label. So this label is called a Fireworks label. It's yellow, and you can see around the perimeter, there's essentially a bunch of squiggly lines. People adopted the name Fireworks. It does have a deep groove. I'm not sure if that comes through. But you'll see in the inner circle around the top, it has West 50th NYC. So that indicates it's a first pressing. That address was used on the labels. That transitioned in 1958 to a Bergenfield, New Jersey label, which looks very similar except for that address. So we can be confident that this is a first mono pressing of Bags Groove. I do have Chad's version. He does a great reproduction. So this is Chad from Analog Productions, who put the reissue series out. And we're going to get into this pressing as well. We'll talk about prices, because I think that is a factor for a lot of people, originals versus the reissues. But this is a really nice heavy jacket. They do a great job reproducing that. And the label they use is the original. So this also has the West 50th NYC label. And this is mastered by Kevin Gray. So there is a CG at CA. So that's Coherent Audio. That is Kevin Gray's studio where he cut this. Both of these were cut from the original master tape, which I think is a really good control. The only difference being that that Rudy Van Gelder used the tape when it was fresh. First year it was recorded. Actually, for Bags Groove, it's a few years later, because Bags Groove is a compilation of 2 10 inches that were recorded in 1954. Then the comp was made in 1957, the 12-inch comp that's called Bags Groove. So sorry for the confusion there. But yeah, so they do a great reproduction here. And then the second title is John Coltrane with the Red Garland Trio. This came up on eBay for a very good price. This is also an original, and it's indicated by all the same stuff This was recorded, I think, in 57 and released in 58. And this is John Coltrane with the Red Garland Trio. This is an exceptional session. This, I was reading like the old Downbeat review, and I agree with it. So, but I think one of the kind of key insights that they shared is during like 57, 58, John Coltrane is still up and coming, and they talk about how he's one of the most exciting tenors in jazz right now, which I think is interesting, specifically because I know a lot of people think of his early stuff on Prestige as a little more straight ahead. I mean, it is more straight ahead, but it's a little less interesting compared to when he moves on to Atlantic, and then especially when he moves on to Impulse, where he does, you know, Love Supreme and Meditations and Ascension and all those crazy things, as well as more straight ahead stuff like ballads and some more orchestrated stuff like African Brass. So I know a lot of people focus on that era of Coltrane, but I think it's interesting to hear him early. And this one I think is great because it's with the Red Garland Trio. And the Downbeat says this, but I 100% agree with this, that Paul Chambers, who plays bass on this, it's almost, you know, it's almost like it's his record because there are so many long bass solos. Now, that's a really important piece because when you think about trio form, so when Train's not playing, you have the Red Garland Trio playing, and you have a lot of bass solos. So that means if you get an original pressing, you need it to be near mint, because that level of sound is going to not be able to cover up any noise. You're going to hear it all. So I think when you're thinking about these OGs and reissues, this is a factor. Because you're going, if there's any like scuffs or scratches or pressing imperfections or dirt, you're going to hear that, because this is a large part a quiet album. So that is super important to understand as well. And that is the case here, where my copy, I would say, is VG. It plays nice, but it's you can hear noise in it during those bass solos for sure. So near mint copies of this that probably play super clean we can look at prices. I pulled up Discogs here. It's probably going to be super expensive, but this is a really exciting title. Chad has one copy that's still in print, so we'll look at that too. But yeah, so this is a great one. Was really happy to get an original. Again, this has like the West 50th label, so super happy. This is a Chad's reproduction cover, just to see it. So again, stout and glossy. All right. So yeah, so okay, let me share my screen and we can get into some of the details here. So let's get Discogs and we could just look at prices. We'll take the conversation there next. So for prices for Bags Groove, this is a first mono pressing. So this is what we just saw. We can see that the price, the median price is 70, so it's not a crazy price, but it has gone as high as over $400. There are 7 copies for sale, and in the United States, we have, for a VG Plus copy for Bags Groove, this seller is asking for $208. We can take a look at what the past sales have been. So even though someone's asking for that, they won't necessarily receive that. So let's see. So VG Plus here, we're seeing 200. Another one for 50. This is last year. We have another VG Plus here for 90. So this is a record that you can get lucky with. I felt like I got lucky with. I went to a record fair and got it for an extremely good price. But if you get it online, if you wait, you probably can get it below $100 if you wait and get lucky as well. So that's Bags Groove. Now, if we look at Bags Groove, the Analog Productions version, this is $40, and then plus taxes and shipping, depending on what your order is, and then also where you are in the world, because I know shipping rates vary based on location. But you can get this version for $40. If we go to the Discogs for John Coltrane with the Red Garland Trio, this one is going to be a little bit more expensive. So here we have the median price around $140. We have the high around $600. There are 3 copies of this for sale. There's a VG copy. They're asking for $200. And then let's look at past sales. So past sales, we're looking for VG, all above $100. We're in like around 150 to 175, another 200. So this is going to be expensive. And like I mentioned, if you don't get a clean copy, if there is noise, you will hear it because it is a quiet record in a lot of spaces, a lot of places within the album itself. So that's one thing to note, and I think that's really important when considering this title. And then also we have this. This is in stock as well, Acoustic Sounds, and this is a $40 record here. Okay, so let's get into how the sonic differences. And it's interesting because I feel like the Blue Notes. So I did pull a Blue Note here. So this is an original pressing of Horace Silver, 6 Pieces of Silver, and I say it's original because it's a first pressing, and you can tell it's a first pressing again because of the address. So if you look at the address in the inner circle there, so inside the deep groove, there's a Lexington, and that is Lexington on both sides. This is also cut by Rudy Van Gelder, recorded at Rudy Van Gelder's Hackensack. I forgot to mention that on the Prestige. So all of those sessions, both sessions that make up Bag's Groove as well as the Coltrane Red Garland, are recorded at Hackensack. I do think that's important when we talk about sound quality. And this was as well. This is a 1957 session, and it's 6 Pieces of Silver. So I have an original first pressing, and then I also have the Classic Series reissue that Kevin Gray also cut. So this is the 6 Pieces of Silver Classic Series, which is around like $30 or $35. And then a lot of times these go on sale, so you can get them for even cheaper. So these are really affordable pressings that are all analog as well. So the reason why I bring this up and mention this is because when I hear the original pressing of this and the Kevin Gray cut Classic Series, I see a huge difference in sound. There's a notable difference. It's for me, it's a different experience listening. And when I want to listen to that record, I need to think about which experience I want. For the most part, I mean, I don't overthink it either, but if you do an A/B comparison, there is a notable difference that I think anybody could really identify. So what's weird for me is on these Prestige titles, originals that are the same time, the same studio, the same cutting engineer, Rudy Van Gelder, against the Audiophile reissues, Kevin Gray, I think the gap is much smaller. Although it's there for sure, I think it's smaller. And this is something I wanted to pose to you guys. If you have any experience with originals versus these Audiophile reissues, specifically with Prestige, the difference in sound quality that you hear. I'd really like to hear your opinions because I've done this. Now, I've mentioned that I have these original first pressings versus these Audiophile ones, but I also have second, third, fourth pressings from, 58, 59, 64. Bob Weinstock at Prestige reissued his back catalog hugely with the same metalwork that Rudy Van Gelder cut. Those are the titles you have to watch out for recycled vinyl. Some of those are pressed on recycled vinyl. I did a video of that a month or two ago if you want to check that out. But if they're pressed without recycled vinyl, they're great. They sound excellent. I'd imagine they sound just like the original press. So there's all these different pressings of Prestige. And I just don't really notice a big difference. What I hear is on Kevin Gray's version, on Bag's Groove, Miles's horn, it sounds like there's natural reverb on it. And I know that it's recorded in Hackensack, which if you're familiar with the Hackensack studio, it's Rudy Van Gelder's parents' living room. So it isn't like a big hall. It's not a big music studio. It's a single room, a living room within a house. So for me, that tone that I hear on Bag's Groove is notably different than the original, although the original sounds excellent. That is the biggest difference. And I do feel like Kevin's separation of instruments allows that to be revealed, is my guess. I think that's really what's the cause of it. Because I do feel like the instrument separation is much better on Kevin Gray's cut. I think that the balance between instruments on Kevin Gray's cut is also a little more even, although not completely even. It's not like they're all just like right in the front. I still think Miles is in front in a lot of this on Bag's Groove, and Coltrane is in front on a lot of it, specifically on the Red Garland Trio album. So that's something else. So I think so. The big difference is instrument separation. There's also a difference in the box. So when I say box, what I'm really trying to describe is these are monos. So the sound stage, I feel like, is way more limited, at least on my system. And I feel like the originals, that limited box of where you hear kind of the musicians, that space that they're taking up, is a little bit smaller than Kevin's, which is a little bit wider. But again, these are not huge differences. So those are kind of my initial thoughts, and they span both of these. And what's interesting is the recorded in Hackensack. One's recorded in 54. The John Coltrane's recorded in 57. So there's many years differences. And I know for a fact, based on the RVG Legacy website, there are big changes that Rudy makes in his recording setup. But I do feel like the results in terms of the differences between the originals and the new audiophile reissues is the same. So I don't know why that is, why Blue Notes, to me, they sound very different between this A being, and the Prestige is much smaller of a difference. So I think, for my decision making on what I'm purchasing and getting in my collection, number one is the music. I want them, I am selective about what sessions I want. If I have sessions that already feature a lot of these players that don't offer anything different other than different tracks, that might factor into me holding off on getting those and maybe focusing on something else. Also, the price. So do I want to spend $300 for a John Coltrane with Red Garland Trio that's VG? Does that make sense? Is that a good use of my resources? If it comes up for $50, that's a different scenario. So I'm aware of that as well. So within the session, how is that going to translate to that old vinyl, which I think is important to understand. And the collecting factor. So how important is it for me to have an artifact, the original piece, which, for me, more and more, I'm interested in getting those originals and hearing how they sound. So I think my kind of listening experience really started with trying to hear kind of the best version of a certain session, which I still like to do, but I think I also like to explore the original pressings, how those sound, how they differ. And I know that there's limitations sonically, like there's compression, like Rudy added compression. He rolled off the bass, I think at 80 hertz or 100 hertz based on the session. And there are reasons why, and many people have gone into this level of detail and explained exactly why Rudy would do that. And yeah, so, I mean, they do offer a different sonic profile, but still, I like to hear how that sounds. I like to hear how an Abbey manufacturing pressing sounds, how a Plastilite pressing sounds. All this stuff is kind of fun for me to explore. And obviously music is first. Like I want to get sessions that I really love to do this. And the, perfection of sound isn't necessarily always the thing that I'm seeking, although sometimes I am. It really is just how I'm feeling. I feel like I don't collect in any one particular way. So for me, it just, right now, it's fun to try to grow some of those early pressings, like the Riverside white labels, or the West 50th NYC, or the Lexington Blue Notes. They're fun to have. And the thing is, based on my collecting patterns, I'm always kind of looking. So if you wait, or if I wait and I'm patient, generally something comes up that I'm interested in for a good price that's really fun and rare. So that is kind of how I've been kind of using, my limited resources to grow my collection right now. But that's all subject to change. In 6 months, it could be different. That's another thing that I've learned while collecting is whatever rules I set, I always break them and I always change them. So I've learned just to not make rules and just kind of just go with what I want. And I still have regrets. I left a couple of things at that record fair that I mentioned that I'm regretting doing. So yeah, so that's kind of it. But yeah, so back to the kind of the sonic differences here. I do think that that the difference, the marginal difference for the Prestige is there. The analog productions to me does sound cleaner. They are pressed that QRP. The vinyl sounds quieter. So when it comes to this John Coltrane Red Garland, that is definitely the one when I pull it out. I don't care how cool this original is. It's just to have that much noise, and it's not it's a low level noise, but it's still there. If I'm in the room sitting there, it's hard for me to kind of get over that. Whereas like if it's a fiery bop session with, you know, like Lee Morgan or Dizzy or somebody like that, you're never going to hear that. But in this type of session, you are going to hear it in a lot of cases. So for me, the Analog Productions version is the one I'd grab. For the Bags Groove, that one I could go either way. I really think both of those sound great. I'm happy to have both of them. So yeah, those are kind of my impressions of the two. Let me know what you think. If you have originals or, you know, later reissues and have compared them to the audiophile ones for Prestige specifically, let me know what you think in terms of difference. It is there. I don't want to say anything less than that, but I do think that that the difference isn't as great. And I did notice that also with like my Miles Davis Cookin well, I actually didn't show that, but I have a Bergenfield pressing. It's AB in the dead wax, RVG. That one, it sounds like Miles is in front of Miles and Coltrane are in front of the rhythm section there. And then on the Analog Productions version of it, it sounds like like everybody is equal footing in terms of soundstage. That one is pretty notable for that. So yeah, so Kevin definitely has better instrument separation as well as soundstage in terms of creating a balance between all the different instruments there. So that's what I've noticed. But I do think for these, the originals, if you can get them and they're clean and you have them, I don't necessarily think you need to get the Analog Productions version. And if you have the Analog Productions version, I think you're set, unless you really want to go back and kind of have the artifact. Because, you know I like to do that. So that's it. So those are my thoughts. Apologies if I rambled a little bit there, but this is really fun. I love talking about this stuff. I know a lot of other people are interested in this too. So please drop a comment. Let me know what you think, what your experience is with jazz specifically, especially like these Rudy Van Gelders and these audiophile ones that are all kind of using that control of the master tape. Are there any other ones that you find are noticeably different, or they're very similar? That's another thing. So for Blue Note, one last thing, and then I'll get out of here. But the later Blue Notes, I mean, I showed that 1957 Horace Silver. Now, if you show McCoy Tyner extensions and compare that, now I haven't done this, so I don't know, but I'm just saying that's a later pressing. That's like a BNLA series. So that was at Inglewood Cliffs. So Rudy Van Gelder's next studio. It was a little bit later. Now, how does that match up against the reissue? I suspect the reissue is still going to, have a better sonic profile, but it probably that gap between the two might be smaller because that was recorded in the 60s, so things were a little different then. So yeah, so let me know what you think. I know I threw a lot out there, but this was fun, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks.